Hello, a very warm welcome to you. Warm and delicious and toasty welcome to you. It's Cop on Podcast. My name's Owen. I'm more than humongously delighted. I'm humongously over the moon to be joined by Dave from Dave's LFC Chat back after a long hiatus. How are we, Dave?
I would say I'm fantastic, but I'm not. I'm a little bit down in the dumps after the weekend, getting over COVID, but I'm sure there is brighter lights ahead, my friend. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We'd be okay, but we've a lot to talk about, my friend. A lot to talk about.
We've got a lot of complaining to do, and I feel justified in doing so. I'm also thrilled beyond all imagination to be joined again by Ryan. Ryan, are you equally nonplussed by what's happened? Has it darkened your mood? Has it dampened your sponge?
It did for a little bit, yeah. But for reasons we'll get into a little bit later, I'm actually quite chipper about the whole affair. We're going to be just fine.
We're gonna be just fine. That's one way of looking at it, and it's presumably you're looking at it that way, Ryan, because you're seeing this as just a blip and nothing more serious. Is that right, Ryan?
So I'm trying to take in the bigger picture rather than just focusing on the one game of looking at, how pre-season, including the Community Shield's gone so far, and also factoring in the performance of the women's team, who played yesterday, who I could not be more impressed with at the minute. Matt Beard and his mighty Reds look like the serious business this season.
We're going to talk about the women's team. I'm going to ask you all kinds of questions as we get into it, and I'm so glad that they're doing well. Unfortunately, I've missed it, but it's not that I don't want to watch it. I really want to watch it, but I've just too many things going on, as happens in life. But let's get back to the Fulham match. I mean, the only way that there can be lingering doubt for me, Dave, lingering doubt was this a result? Because we'll get into all kinds of stats, but the most shocking one to me was I looked at last season's average passing accuracy, and each one of our starting 11, including Alison Becker, was significantly lower in just passing the ball to their teammates. For example, I'll try and bring it up on the screen if I can for those who are watching, and I'll just explain it for those who are listening. Alison, last season, his passing accuracy average was 85%. Against Fulham, 76%. Okay. Trent Alexander-Arnold last season, his passing accuracy average was 78%. And against Fulham, he managed 58%. And it gets worse. I'm not going to go through the entire list, but every single person, Trent was the worst defender, being 20% lower than average. So my question to you, Dave, is it just a one-off? And we're going to learn from it, or have we been overcooked by both last season being the longest season ever and the grueling preseason, which has seen lots of our players drop like flies?
I think you can throw everything into the pot and give it a good story. I think absolutely everything comes into it. I mean, our players are getting older. They're a year older, especially in the midfield. But to be honest, that team we put out should have been good enough to beat Fulham probably 9 times out of 10. That was the 1 out of 10. We didn't beat them. I mean, you can look at stats all day. I mean, at the end of the day, we just didn't turn up on. We didn't. Too many top players did not turn up. You can get away with 1 or 2 not playing well. But when you look at that there, everybody didn't play well. And when everybody doesn't play well and you're coming up against a team that has won the championship, they're at home, it's a sellout, it's a lunchtime kickoff, one of our favorite times to kick a ball, and the crowd are up for it. Their intensity was there. We did not read the Pep Linders book. They obviously were shown pictures with it in the training ground, but didn't read the bloody thing. because they had the intensity. Fulham had the intensity. So, I mean, yeah, stats are one thing, but look, we just didn't turn up on. And is it a blip? I think it is. I mean, you look back over the last 4 or 5 years, we only lost 2 league games last year. West Ham, Leicester away from home. We didn't even lose the game against Fulham, by the way. I know it sounds like we did. It feels like we lost the game. Draws are almost like losses because the way City and Liverpool play, you cannot even afford to draw games. They beat West Ham 2-0 away fairly comfortably. Haaland looks like he will get a lot of goals. But we can only concentrate on ourselves. And you could see Klopp was not. I've never seen a more controlled anger interview at the end. He looked like he wanted to explode, but knew he couldn't. And I've never heard him say the things, few words he said, which I've never heard him say before. Like even after Champions League finals or games where we've lost, he actually more or less said the effort wasn't there. Now, for Jurgen Klopp to come around and say the word effort wasn't there, the sentence, I think is huge. That's the first time I've ever heard him say it, especially in our good last 3-4 years where we've been usually blown teams away. First game of the season, you have to set down a marker. One word is just disappointment. I mean, and the biggest disappointment for me was when it was 1-1. We got to 1-1. We'd done all the bleeding hard work. We got to 1-1, and everybody, I'm sure, in the ground, or even the Fulham fans are thinking, here, Liverpool is going to kick on now and win this 2-1, 3-1. And then to give away that silly penalty. There's 1 or 2 players that followed the course for that. Whether it was a penalty or not, I think it probably was a penalty, but I think that was the kick in the teeth. To get it back to 1-1 after should have been out of the game. 1-1, you have a chance to win it now. Let's go, guys. And we still just went backwards. It's a little bit of a worry in the back of my mind, and Ryan, it's a small worry in the back of my mind. I mean, we seem to be letting teams in early and scoring against us. In the last few games, they've scored. It used to be really, watertight at the back. We're not as watertight, as we used to be. And that's a little bit of a worry. But listen, we've Palace next. We probably hammered them, United as well. So I still think we'd be okay. But there's a little worry in the back of my mind there. The midfield just did not function. Those 3 did not function. We need an Abbey in there. We need even a Curtis Jones in there. We need just something different to make us. It's too static, that 3. You'll get away with it in certain games, but it's too static. We need someone with a bit of fluidity, a bit more, going them, or a bit more forward playing them. Everything's just across the box, passing. There's no real... The midfield is very disappointing, very, very disappointing. And that's a very long answer to a very short question. But very, very disappointed. Very, very disappointed on.
No, you're welcome to go for your life, as they say. Spit out whatever spitballs need to be spat. Whatever chewing tobacco you've been chewing on, we need to vent at these kinds of times. I'm leaving the passing accuracy stats up on the screen for now, and I'm going to go to you, Ryan. There have been several scapegoats on several of the many millions of podcasts that I have listened to since the final whistle the other day, 2 days ago, as we were recording this. And a lot of them centered around Jordan Henderson. His passing accuracy last season, the average was 85.5%, whereas against Fulham, it was 14.5% lower. So not as bad as Trent's 20% lower, but he is the second worst offender in the team. I thought Hendo... he actually made 1 or 2 nice passes, but his passing range was really off. You could tell. I don't want to call people out, though, because the thing that worries me more, Ryan, is the fact that Fulham just generally looked more full of beans. They're full of all kinds of beans, full of the 3 bean mix I get in a can around here. And, Liverpool was still farting out the baked beans that we used, that we ate to celebrate the victory against the Community Shield. We weren't as quick as they were. We weren't as quick to the ball. Nothing summed that up more than when they hit the post in the second half, Virgil made a very poor clearance, very lackadaisical clearance, and Darwin Núñez, who was excellent when he came on, he had just come on and he was waiting for the ball to come to him. So Ream, the defender, ran around Darwin Núñez and just got to the ball first. And that summed it up, even though Darwin was excellent. And I'm not going to, he was the absolute shining light. He was burning bright. But it was the fact that they wanted it more, as the cliche says. They were more up for the game. And it's like we were like, surprised by that in a kind of gormless way. And we didn't react to that. We didn't match them for wanting to get to the ball first, Ryan. That was my main problem. Well, what do you wish to vent about or complain about?
Oh, okay. So I'll do my venting first. So first of all, yes, we were poor. It has to be acknowledged. I think we were a little bit undercooked due to our grueling pre-season schedule. Not necessarily just in terms of friendlies, but in terms of the way we train. Klopp is renowned for absolutely monstering the players during some of the pre-season training camps. I think the dividends for that will pay off later in the season. I thought the referee was awful all game. He seemed to get caught up in the hysteria of the day. Like Fulham fans in there up for it, understandably good for them. But the ref seemed to just be willing to give them whatever they wanted. At one point, Ricardo Pereira, is that his name? No, he's the Leicester fullback. Andreas Pereira.
Andreas Pereira, yes.
He goes down clutching his face, trying to make out Mata headbutted him. Should have been sent off for that. That was disgusting. He was like Rivaldo in the World Cup. It properly got under my skin. The level of theatrics, the level of simulation there. It was a disgrace. And I don't care what anyone says. That's not a pen. That's a dive. And yes, there's contact, and it's still a dive. And sure, we'll have to take this on the chin. But I don't want to hear any other fan from any other club ever turn around to me and go, "Oh, Mo Salah, he dives." Bollocks. Like, that was so bad. And yet, VAR has a look at it and gives it the ref's way. Have you seen them given? Yes. Does it make it right? No. So I was annoyed at that. Now, I think we've probably played Fulham at the very worst time to play them, when they've just come off a season where they've walloped everyone in the Championship. They've still got the tails up and they haven't had a beating. We were off our game. We were poor. And as a result, we've come away with the result that we didn't want in terms of a draw. But I think in terms of the training that we've already done over the summer, I think that will start to pay off over the next couple of weeks. Bear in mind, if this was any other season, we'd still be in pre-season right now. So I think we're struggling to adjust to that change. And out of every single team in the Premier League, I would say that we need to be at the absolute peak of sharpness more than anyone else, because of the way that we play. Everything we do is on a knife edge between the high line, the way we pass, the intensity with which we press. It all requires you to be at 100%. And if you're not, well, the last time we were, and this is going to be a bit hyperbolic, so sorry, but the last time we were as bad as we were at the weekend was when we got battered 7-2 by Villa. And that was because we just didn't have the intensity.
I had exactly the same thought today. Yeah, the lack of intensity throughout the team. But is it something that you're concerned about? Because, I'm a worrier, Ryan. You know that. I'm a worrier. The glass is neither half full nor half empty. The water in the glass has been laced with something poisonous, in my opinion. So, I have to try and keep my anxiety in check, occasionally. But does it not concern you too that because of the preseason, because of the 68-game season or whatever it was we had last year, we're not ready for this because we need more time off? And Pep's approach to preseason, which was to only play 2 preseason games, was actually the wiser way, or obviously I'm just reading way too much into it and it's too early to tell.
I think if I've learned anything from last season, it's that stressing too much about this is not good for you. So I'm just out to enjoy what I can. So whilst I was initially annoyed at the various things that annoyed me throughout the game, I'm taking the positives of James Milner's performance off the bench because I thought he was majestic when he came on. Like, why won't that man age? Like, I am younger than him and I am shot. Getting up the stairs, oh, it's a nightmare. But James Milner just keeps getting fitter and is just amazing. Darwin Núñez, when he came off the bench, looks amazing. He's a bag of tricks and invention, and we can go into a bit more detail about that later. But Harvey Elliott looked bright when he came on. And whilst we were poor, especially first half, we did get better as the game went on. And had it not been for that dubious penalty decision, putting us back down, but putting us back a goal down, I still think I think we would have come back and got to 2-1 had it not been for the pen. And had the game gone for another 5 or 10 minutes, we'd have probably got a third. I'm not worried. I think against Palace we'll be better. We'll have had another week to get together, to train, to get some tactical stuff done. The future's still really bright, and let's just enjoy this while we can.
I like it. Some very sage and level-headed advice there. Thank you very much for that. But you're going to hate me for this. I thought it was a pen. I thought it was a pen because there was definite contact in the knees. And yes, he might have flumped to the floor like the 1970s children's program, The Flumps, but Pootle, wasn't it? Pootle from The Flumps. And for all the many of you who've got no idea what we're talking about, that was a beautiful impression of the theme tune by Dave. Absolutely magnificent. Dave, there were several refereeing things. We are going to talk about how shit the ref was for a little bit, because he was awful, regardless of whether you think it was a penalty or not. There was the Jordan Henderson thing. You can't land on someone's ankle and, you know, even if it's just landing on the ankle, if you're landing like that, that's a foul. That's like heavy contact.
Well, it takes the player out of the game. That's one way to look at it.
It takes the player out of the game.
Whether it's a foul, I think Klopp reiterated on it as well. The fact that it wasn't meant to be a foul, it was accidental, doesn't mean it's not a foul. Do you know what I mean?
I've got the laws in front of me here, Dave.
I'd
just like to read the definition. It was from Law 12, and a direct free kick is awarded if a player commits any of the following offences. And then there's a list such as handball or holding an opponent. But number 3 on this list is impeding an opponent with contact. And there were 2 moments, like there was contact and it impeded Jordan Henderson from running. The definition of impede, according to the Oxford Dictionary, because there are some pedants like me who would say, well, what do you mean by impede? The Oxford Dictionary defines it as delaying or preventing or by obstructing or hindering. So there you go. That's the definition of impede. So Jordan Henderson impeded via contact? Yes. And another thing that absolutely no one talked about, I had a shit ton of praise for Alexander Mauler Mitrovic, but if you look at his hand, I think his left hand goes on Trent's right shoulder as he's jumping for the ball, and this is also impeding an opponent with contact, Dave.
I think it's nitpicking. Sorry, Jan, I think it's nitpicking. Look,
it's nitpicking.
I mean, I'm an old school 80s
okay.
style. Old school 80s style. You've got to do better defending on the far back. But he didn't even jump. He actually jumped down. Trent's 6 foot. Trent's not a small.
He didn't jump down. He was pushed down. That's what I'm saying. There's only one angle you can see it.
You ever see this jump? That jump. Look at that.
If someone's pushing me on the back.
He looked behind him and seen Mitrovic. Your man's 6'2" or something. Is he 6'2"? He knows he's going to be coming in fucking behind him. Come on. He's got to be defending a bit more aggressively. Aggressively is the word I use. Back into him. Didn't do it. Doesn't matter. He was beaten on the far post. Look, Trent had a bleeding nightmare. If you want to talk, Trent had an absolute, probably one of his worst games. You even seen his thing there was a 58, 20% drop in passes.
58%. Absolutely awful.
Terrible. And he kept giving the ball away. We were just building, he'd give it away, or he'd hoof it. It was like he was just getting more frustrated as the game went on and went on and went on. One good ball, actually, the ball over the top when it fell to Darwin, and Salah popped it in, if you remember that one over the top.
Yeah, exactly.
But Trent had a game to forget, to be fair. Now, we all know Trent is brilliant going forward. We all know Klopp puts him in the team for his forward play, his balls over the top, his crosses, his free kicks, his corner kicks, his passing. We know there is a deficiency in his defending, except Robbo on the other side can sort of do both. Maybe not as good as Trent, but certainly defending is his first job and he should be doing a lot better. I mean, defensively, he's got to get a lot better, but that's what you do when you pick Trent, as I just said. Klopp's, he's in the team for his attacking prowess rather than his defending. We got caught a few times over the last year or two with some of his defending, and I mean, I'm not defending him, but I'm just saying, defensively, you know,
he's got his critics defensively, and you can see a few of them on the screen if your screens are big enough there. I'll try and make this a little bit bigger for those of you who are watching. Defensive stats are all here. This is compared to other fullbacks in the top 5 leagues around Europe. This is via fbref.com. And his pressing, that's not his game. So we can't hold that against him. That means absolutely nothing. He's only in the 8th percentile, but that doesn't mean anything because our fullbacks don't press. That's just our system. Tackles as well. I don't think you can read much into tackles because it depends how much your team is under the cosh and where Trent ends up. I don't, on the pitch, he's more like a right winger or an inside right. So, he doesn't make many tackles. He's only in the 18th percentile. But that, again, I don't think you can read anything into that. His interceptions is very good, and you can judge him on interceptions. He's in the 80th percentile for interceptions. But then when it comes to blocks and clearances and headers won, he's in the 7th, the 19th, and the 11th percentile. All pretty bad. And it's not that he can't defend. I'm not going to carry on that boring narrative because that's what people think. They underline it as Trent can't defend, whereas we can see here very clearly that, for example, his interceptions are excellent. But it's something that we need to compensate for. And we've done so well over the years with having a Henderson who's been a lot more mobile than perhaps he is now. Over the years, and other players filling in, dropping across, dropping back. If Naby Keita's playing on that side, he does a good job doing that too. But Ryan, I don't know. Are we now? Is it more the fact that everybody had a bad game that we didn't manage to cover Trent's woeful game? It was the worst game I've seen him play for us. The fact that the rest of the team played badly didn't cover up what they would have done normally covering up. I don't know. I don't know. Go on.
I think Henderson having a poor game in conjunction with Trent having a poor game is particularly damaging for us because you need one of them doing bits covering. You need Jordan covering in behind Trent when Trent gets forward. You need one of those two to be playing really well, essentially. And the fact that both of them don't play well is particularly harmful. Now, in terms of Trent's performance, I know what you're saying there, Dave, about Mitrovic and he should do better. But I remember a similar goal to this was, I think it was Andy Carroll's first goal for us, where he just monsters over the top of Alexander Kolarov and bullets one into the top corner. And that's very much what Mitrovic's game is, and it's not what Trent's game is. Sometimes you're just going to get beat by someone who's better in the air than you. That doesn't mean you're a bad defender. No one spent years writing article after article about how Alexander Kolarov can't defend. The narrative only persists because he's the best right back in the world and people don't like it. This is why they did it with Dani Alves. Oh, Dani Alves can't defend. He's the best right back in the world and completely changed the way we look at right backs at the time. Similarly with Trent. And yes, he's had a poor game, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater just yet.
Think there's a case for Trent to go into midfield?
No. I think he is the best right back in the world and just let him be the best right back in the world.
It won't happen this season.
I mean,
this season. Progressively.
Even progressively. and not until he's in his late 30s and his legs go in a similar fashion to
I
Alves.
don't know.
But I'd rather leave him in right back and let him get 12 plus assists a season from that position while we're getting 90 points a season. He's unreal, and I think because of the persistent narrative around him not being able to defend, people go, "Oh, well, maybe we should change what we ask of him." I don't think we should. I think the standard that we have is so high that we almost nitpick in search of perfection. But it's a perfection that doesn't really exist. If you put him in midfield, you're not going to have the best right back in the world at right back, unless you go and sign someone, I guess, or Conor Bradley's really, really, really good. But
yeah, but the flip side to that is would you then not have one of the best midfielders in the world?
don't know.
Right? Yeah, maybe.
There's nothing to say that he is.
I think Trent could be one of the best midfielders in the world very quickly if he moves there, because I think his game is, ideally suited to a midfield role. I completely disagree with you, because I agree. Oh, he's disappeared. Obviously,
He wasn't happy with that answer.
He wasn't happy. Yeah. For those of you listening, Ryan's just disappeared.
I'm not saying it's this season he's got to go into midfield. I'm saying eventually I think Klopp has an eye on him in midfield in maybe a year or two.
Yeah, but what about this, Dave? What about if, for example, with all of our injuries and things, we're going to talk about, whether you think we need a transfer or not. We're going to talk about that in a bit. So don't answer that quite yet. But if, let's say, we do need a transfer this summer, and you can either have a top quality midfielder for 60 million, or you can have a top quality right back for 30 million, someone who's under the radar.
Ramsey in to cover for him. I know he's had a few injuries and stuff. He's a really good 18-year-old Aberdeen Scottish young player of the year. Really excited about him coming in, but obviously he had a little niggle apparently when he came in from Aberdeen, and he's still there. Millie can play there, Gomez can play there.
Yeah, no, we've got cover. We've got cover.
Klopp's not going to change it this season.
But I'm talking about, a really freaking good right back. I'm talking about someone who, if it's the Champions League final tomorrow, you wouldn't mind seeing them play. If you would have little doubts, especially if it was an 18-year-old, or if it was Milner or Gomez, you'd have an element of doubt if any of them stepped in at right back. But I'm not saying I know who, but let's say, for example, they're out there, this right back, okay? Maybe. And you had a choice.
Maybe. Look, he's not going to change it anytime soon. Klopp likes the system. Robbo, Trent bombing on. You Van Dijk there. Eventually, Canate when he's back.
Yeah. And I'm not going to, I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression. I'm not, it's just, I'm just putting some ideas out there. Yeah. And I just think, maybe that could work, as well as keeping him at right back. Gary Richards simply says, keep Trent at right back. Well, there you go. Absolutely. Gary also had a really good question before, or an opinion. He's taken to referring to himself as one, which is excellent, and I thoroughly approve of that. He says one has to say that Bobby can never start again. Núñez to start next Monday, and Liverpool will be champions. So there you go. That's a big statement there from Gary. He says that Bobby should never start for.
No, I did say midweek Núñez should have started. Look back at me podcasts. I said Núñez has to start against Fulham, and the very reason he had to start against Fulham was because he gives us something bloody different, and Firmino does not give us what Núñez gives us. I think Firmino's at this stage of his career, is a better 20-25 minute man coming on. He's not good from the start on. He hasn't been good from the start for a good season. He just doesn't. He doesn't have the dynamism. He doesn't have the energy he used to have. Obviously, he's older, so I cannot see Firmino starting more games. I mean, Jota's coming back hopefully in 2 weeks as well. So, but I mean, Bobby's a nice option to have. But I'd rather Bobby coming on last 15-20, especially with the 5 sub rule, to calm things down, take control of the ball. Pure half hour, 20-minute full of energy, but he runs out of energy after about a half an hour.
There's the gout thing we looked at a couple of weeks ago.
Had he got gout, had he?
Well, that was a rumour, and it would sort of make sense, especially with rumours coming out that the club are looking to possibly sell him.
Why would Klopp start them? if he knew he'd go.
Because gout can go away and come back. You can have episodes of extreme pain and episodes when you're more or less fine. So if he was feeling fine, then Klopp would say, okay, go for it. But, it's just a possibility. I mean, I've got absolutely no credible information from reliable sources, but it's just a rumor that came out.
Talking about gout. Nout. Okay.
Well, exactly. But anyway, Ryan's just sent a message saying his phone has just suddenly died. So
Rest in peace.
So it looks like he's yes, exactly. So there you go. It might just be us for the moment, then, Dave.
That's okay.
But there you go. So yeah, with Bobby though, I mean, gout or no gout, he's been absolutely unbelievable for us. But I agree with you.
There's no sentiment. There's no sentiment to professional football. There's no has been brilliant, has been this. Liverpool, we're going for the league this year. What happened to us last year? Just losing by one fucking point is killing me. It's killing you. When you look back over it historically, being so close to quadruples and winning leagues and Champions League, got to fucking win it. You got to win one of them. They're one of the big two, I think. Champions League or league. FA Cups and League Cups are nice, but the league, Champions League, one or both I want. And you've got to start like a house on fire. The other way, it used to be the other way around. City actually start slow and, take a while to build up. But we're already, 2 points behind. It's not the end of the world, it's only a game in. But, we got to be beating Palace next game. There's no doubt about it. We just got to go rock and roll. And there's no sentiment. I don't think there is sentiment. There can't be sentiment in football. What good is that? You'd play any 11 you wanted just because you were good last year. You've got to play who's fit, who looks good in training, who fits the system. I just think Firmino was a mistake. I would have had Nunes. Looking back at my podcast since last Monday, I said Nunes has to start. Everybody was saying Firmino.
Yeah.
Everybody
said
Firmino.
Well, I mean, on Cop On, there were a few of us on the call. I think it was 4 versus 1 in favour of starting Darwin after Man City. But let's talk about him, because if there is a shining light, it comes from the star when he's played now in the Community Shield, and in the first game, he's played a total of about 60 minutes. He's scored a couple. He's made one. And some of the highlights, I don't know if you've forgotten already, when he just came on, and apart from the bad bit of defending that I mentioned earlier, that was the only thing he did badly, because just like a minute later, Diaz stole the ball beautifully, Luis Diaz. Darwin got in, and then he played a poor pass instead of shooting. Do you remember that when he just rolled it across?
I don't know why he didn't shoot there.
Oh, I don't know why he didn't shoot, or he could just pass it like it was literally
2 minds.
30 centimetre pass to Mo, or there was a 2 metre pass to Lucho Diaz. And I think that was, I think that confused him. I don't know. That's all right. It could happen to anyone. But then the equaliser won. I mean, I mentioned before how Fulham were, swarming like the bees in my auntie's garden. And so Milner and Elliott found the way to beat it, which is just one touch from Milner out to Elliott, one touch over the top of these advancing, marauding players, and the space is in behind them. It was for Mo Salah, and his cross. This is for the goal. This is about a minute after Darwin obviously had that one that was saved as well. The same kind of flick. He got very lucky with the finish. The same flick. He got very lucky the second time. But it's just like for an impact. And we were suddenly like, I look back at the game today, and honestly, the impact of Elliott as well, it has to be said, and Milner.
Yeah. Even Carvalho looked good and fresh when he came on.
Absolutely.
Listen, Liverpool were so bad on the day that anybody came on and did anything looked fresh. You know what I mean? Because it was so stale. It was so stale.
Yeah. No, but we just suddenly knew what to do. And I think, Darwin, he's got to start for the foreseeable future. I mean, that's it, right? Start him until Jota comes back. I don't know. What would you do?
Just start him until he stops scoring. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, if Jota comes back, it doesn't matter. You start him. We Palace next at Anfield, and then United away. We don't look like they're all over the shop, but I think him against Martinez at the centre half, 4-6 centre half. That should be really interesting.
And Maguire, don't forget.
But like, that's another day's podcast. That's another podcast. But look, I mean, it gives us something different. I did say, I don't know what you've seen. I did another 2 podcasts last week saying that Darwin Núñez will score a hat full of goals. He'll 20 plus Premier League goals. There's just no doubt about it. Salah probably even get more. Even he gives Salah space. You know, it's great for Salah. Salah got the goal, of course, with Darwin. Whether he meant that little touch to him, I don't know. But what it is, he would score a lot of 6-yard, 10-yard goals. That goal he got with the flick, 6-yard area. The ball's across the box. We never had that. We always put the ball across the box, but there's no one ever there. I mean, there's nobody ever on the 6-yard area in the center of the goal. He will get a bloody hatful of goals. It's as simple as. And that's the goal, the type of goals he get. He'll try that flick again. He loves that flick. He'll get that flick. He'll get keepers fumbling, 6-yard tap-ins, headers, corners. They're the type of goals mostly Darwin Núñez will score, I think. About 80%, 85% will all be like 6-yard tap, Gary Lineker-esque, 5-yard tap-in type things. But I don't care. That just gives us something different. That's great. Having a man there all the time in the 6-yard area, big fella, great in the air as well. So I'm absolutely over the moon for him. Great start because I think it's important as a striker to start well when you have a big fee on your shoulders like that, when he's a young lad, and to get a few goals early on, nice.
Do you remember that one that he did when he sort of rolled towards the goal and it didn't have enough legs to go over the line?
It would have went in only for the defender, cleared it, even though it was rolling. It would have went in.
But do you remember how that chance came about? Because I didn't until I watched the highlights back. It was just a hopeful ball by Endo. It was just one of those hopeful diagonals, and it was too high, and it was a curling one. And his first touch, he jumped, he leapt like like someone startled. I mean, salmon is the way. I was trying to find another image. I was trying to think about when I got electrocuted by an air conditioner in the Nevada desert. I leapt 10 feet into the air. So that's what happened. Darwin Núñez-esque. And he headed it up. And, when you head it up, I mean, it's a great touch from a hopeful ball because it just gives you a little bit of a chance to do something. But then he used his body, his absolute kind of mountain strength to hold off the defender and then bring that ball down. And then he was able to get the shot away that was cleared off the line. And that's just a hopeful ball forward. He's so amazing. Gary Richards says that he is ruthless in front of goal. Darwin has got guile. And he says Liverpool should and will beat Palace. That's interesting stuff. We're going to talk about that in just a moment, Dave. But before that, I'd like to ask you about something that Raz is talking about. Raz is in the chat. Hi, Raz. Really nice to have you with us. He says, I love Klopp, but he's being stubborn. We have a midfield full of Aquilanis. Ooh.
There's a blast from the past. What, the Italian maestro? Okay.
With the Italian maestro, not exactly the Italian maestro.
Mysterio, the Italian Mysterio.
Mysterio, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Now that was a mystery. That was a mystery sign, wasn't it?
It was a mystery one. But in the transfer window, so we've got Oxlade-Chamberlain, of course, Thiago, Keita, Jones, all of them out. Maybe one more that I've forgotten. We've got Fabinho, Henderson, Milner and Elliott, maybe Fabio Carvalho in. Klopp mentioned in post-match that he's tempted at least to go for another transfer. Do you reckon it's necessary? I mean, basically, I'll frame the question like this. How would you feel? How upset would you be if we didn't bring any other midfielder in before the end of the window or right back, like I said?
It depends on how bad the injuries are. I heard something today, Neil Jones mentioning that the Thiago got a scan yesterday and that it doesn't seem to be as bad as they first feared. Now, hopefully, that's only a 2-3 week thing and not a 2-3 month thing. If that's the case, that's not bad. But the very fact that he's got that niggle could You know, the way it could happen again fairly quick. You're only back and it happens again. Ox is out till October. Nabby's Nabby. Let's put it that way. Naby Keita's Naby Keita. I mean, you could get injured playing PlayStation. We know the story with Naby. We've been talking about him at Mateus Nunes and these type players for months now. Do we need someone? It's unusual for Klopp to leave it so late. We've about 3 weeks left in the window. But he did hint at it last week. Even in Friday's chat before the Fulham game, he actually didn't close the door on it. So I think they're working on something in the background I think they've been working on it for a week or two. I don't think it's just because of the Fulham game. I think he's been working on it ever since the Ox injury, I think. I think the Ox injury knocked him back because that's a fairly serious injury. That's an October job. I mean, even if he comes back sometime in October, we're stopping again in November for the bleeding World Cup. So you need someone in there. So I have a feeling we might dip in. The question is, who do we dip in? I'm not saying Jude Bellingham. I don't think it's a 100 million Jude Bellingham, 100 million plus. I think it's more like a swap or something like that, or maybe even a loan or something. It won't be a big signing, but I do think maybe one more in midfield. It just eased a bit of pressure there, I think, because as we say, I mean, Thiago obviously out for a little while. Hendo, Fab has had one or two little injury issues as well. Jones is out injured at the moment. Naby's sick. Ox is out long term. Jota will be back in a few weeks. I know he's a forward, but he's still got a bit of an injury and a niggle. So I think it's a possibility we might bring someone in. But if we don't, I would presume that the injuries we have are going to clear up, and that's why the reason we're not getting anybody in. It's not that we're not trying, but I have a feeling, just something in the back of the mind since Friday's interview. If you watch it back, Klopp, they ask him about possibility. He more or less said it'll only be done if it's the right thing to do, or if it's an emergency or something like that. And could be an emergency that they bring in somebody.
Well,
it's a possibility. I don't know. It's a possibility, though. It's more of a possibility now than it was, even last week. It's more of a possibility.
Well, yeah.
Basically.
That's a great answer. It's a great answer. I totally agree. But who would you bring in? I'm not saying who do you think Klopp would bring in. The decision is Klopp says that he needs he needs to get some advice, and who's he going to turn to? But Dave from Dave's LFC chat. So he gives you a call.
He's ringing. Klopp, yes, go.
That's right. Yes.
Fine. Yeah.
So who do you want? Hello, Dave. Hello. That was my Jurgen impression. Not very good, but there you go.
But look, that guy Matthias Nunes I think it's Nunes off Sporting Lisbon, looks good. There's a few German. I'm sure he's got his eyes all over the German league as well. It's hard to say. He doesn't like players coming in disrupting the nice little group he has, and they all went away playing table tennis and catching fish and stuff like that in Austria. And he likes that camaraderie. He likes that group, that brotherhood, that scout troop, that type of, and if someone comes in this late and doesn't quite mix with the, with the chemistry and stuff like that, it can go the opposite way and can ruin a lot. You can actually do more damage by bringing someone in, if you know what I mean. In the long term. So I think he'll tread carefully, but there is a possibility within the next 2-3 weeks someone might come in. But I'm not saying it's Jude Bellingham. I don't think it'd be that big of a signing. It'd be more low key.
I agree.
More of a filler. That type of thing.
Yes, more of a filler, a poly filler. Alan sees in the chat. Alan sees it in the chat. Great to have you with us, Alan. He says we need a midfield boss. We have no one to put the foot in when like Fulham did. Not a dirty player, just a tough guy. Yeah, I mean, we've got Fabinho. He does that job very well. But
what's your take on Fabinho's form over the last few months?
Oh, I think he had one relatively poor game. I don't think he was as bad as some people are saying. I listened to the Anfield Wrap earlier, and Neil Atkinson was like basically.
I heard it actually.
Calling him out and saying how bad he was, and I wouldn't go that far at all.
Drop off. He was talking. He wasn't even talking about the Fulham. He was on about a drop off.
A drop off since January, and I would have to see the stats to back it up. I mean, that's the thing. It's like with that kind of statement, maybe he's right. I haven't noticed it. I think there's a lot of, people's thoughts and words are influenced by minuscule things
Well,
in
maybe
football.
if you're
So
at the
let's say,
game,
for example,
they go to
no,
the
but
games at Anfield as well, every game. So even the away games. Maybe
yes,
when you're at
yes,
the
that's
game,
true.
you see a lot more on than
Yeah,
you would
that's true.
on a match of the
That's
day
true.
highlights show.
That's a
That's the
very
only
good
thing I would
point.
say there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But no, I was just thinking that people's mindsets can change. I mean, let's say, for example, we had won 2 of the games that we didn't manage to win last season. One being the Champions League final, and the other one being turning one draw into a
Spurs
victory.
game, let's say.
Then we would have won the Premier League and the Champions League and the FA Cup and the League Cup. And the idea that after 2 games of the next season, you're saying that there has been a big drop-off in quality in these players, it doesn't hold much water to me, because
I think the levels of let's say the midfield three, Thiago, Hendo, Fab, who seem to be the
Hendo has
three,
been the biggest
big
drop.
three. Yeah, the level has been so high that if any of them have a bad game, it looks like a Russian midfielder, Sergei Drop-off. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, though? It's the big drop-offs.
That's right. I do. I know exactly what you mean. And but I think that's it. I think people can jump to conclusions. Maybe there has been a drop in form, but I mean I can give you pretty good evidence about Henderson that from last season as well. His role in a lot of the goals we conceded in the matches in which we dropped points in the Premier League. You can actually go back and look at. I mean, he's okay as a number 6, but there's a lot of the time when he's at fault with either positioning or just an outright mistake that lead to goals, unfortunately.
Yeah. Look, it's no use pointing fingers after that one game. We were so good against City. We were so good against City the week before that it was like blow City out of water. Jesus, this is bam, we're going to win the first 20 games. And all of a sudden, everybody is about. Even Van Dijk did not look like Van Dijk. Let's be real. Even Matip did not look like Matip. Everybody.
That's true.
Like
that's true. And we're right. And I know I don't want to point fingers at particular people, but if we're talking about the midfielders, I think we can get someone. I'd love to see someone dynamic and robust. Like Alan C was talking about, Course is in the chat. Hello, Course. He says Stephen Corker's coming back. Emergency loan. Yes, he'll shore it up. Gary Richards reckons James Maddison would be better. Would improve our midfield. Or Tielemans. Oh, I disagree with you there, Gary. I think Tielemans is not dynamic enough for me. I want the dynamism is what.
Would you take a Kante?
Yeah, but Kante's finished. I'd love Kante, but I think Conor Gallagher is that kind of profile.
Yeah, he was on loan at Palace last year. He's back with Chelsea, isn't he? He's on the bench.
He is back with Chelsea, yeah. And but I just think that kind of profile, who's just non-stop dynamo. Yes,
Liverpool won't go for a Premier League player. It'll be foreign. It'll be on the continent. I could not.
Oh
see
yes, I'm sure.
You've got your 50% tax.
I'm talking about style.
Away.
Yes. Yeah, but I'm talking about style, stylistically, someone like Gallagher or Kante who just break up play and they go mad, and they can also contribute to the attack. There you go. So, of course, says what a fan wants to see from Fabinho might be polar opposite from what the boss wants. So to say he's dropped off is all conjecture. Yes, it is all conjecture unless you can find evidence. I totally agree with that. Yeah, that it's and it's all conjecture unless it's provable in various. And there are so many ways you could try to prove things, but I think there would have to be a significant body of evidence to suggest that he's dropped off, and I haven't seen.
We'd have to get personally. CSI and sort it out for us, because
exactly
the evidence. There's small bits of evidence, little anecdotal. Is that the word they use for evidence? It's like a UFO I see in the sky. It was a light. I seen it. It was a light. It had flashing lights. Was it a UFO or was it a drone?
Or a helicopter?
Or a helicopter. Or a figment of the imagination. Could have been all them above.
Absolutely. I see UFOs. Actually, speaking of UFOs, I see them about. It used to be about 3 or 4 times a week, and now it's about. I saw what last time I saw it was a couple of weeks ago. There's a UFO. There's like I can see out the window. I'm on the 5th floor, and I can see sort of. I've got a view over some rooftops, and I
They're
can
not
see a
called
bit of the
UFOs
sky.
anymore. They're called UAPs.
UFOs
Unidentified
is not politically
aerial
correct.
phenomenon. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because
But
UFO
no, but
stands
this
for
is
unidentified footballing object.
yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Oh, fuck's sake.
But but I see it, and it's like a light, and it because I see planes go past all the time, right? And because I can see the sky, and the planes go past, and their light is sort of that big. But this is a light that starts that big, and then it gets like way too big for an aeroplane, and then it goes back.
It's like
It's
a lighthouse beacon.
like a sort of beacon, but it flares. Yeah, but it's just once.
Do you know what I
And
want to
then it
say to you?
stops. Yeah.
If there is such thing as aliens or whatever, UFOs, whatever you want to call them, UFO actually doesn't mean aliens, it just means they're unidentified. We don't know what they are. But anyway, let's say they are aliens. Why the hell would some sort of civilization that's maybe 1 million years, maybe 10 million years more advanced than us still be using lights? Think about it.
Get much.
When you're in space, you don't need fucking lights. I'll tell you that much.
We'll get back to football chat in a moment, but no, this is a very interesting thing. This is a very interesting thing because I mean, why would they still use radios? We're transmitting all these things, and it's like, oh, hang on, Slargo Blaster. Let me just tune in with the transistor because I think these humans
traffic light system. You have to have your lights on. Bullshit.
Exactly.
The very best ever I've ever seen of a UFO in a film. I don't know whether you remember. It was an 80s film called The Navigator, where the young guy is picked up in Florida, I think, by a spaceship with all these mad animals on it. And the spaceship is a bit like Michael Knight's kit, where it talks to them in a million different languages. But the spaceship itself can change shape, unbelievable speeds, but it's just like a blob of aluminium or a blob of lead melted, but it blends. There's no lights on it. There's no even steps, chairs, windows, but it just blends in with the scenery and all. That's the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, good idea. But anyway, let's get back to football chat. But no, but that's very good. You're absolutely right. But anyway, let's. we've got to wrap it up anyway because we've almost done an hour. I want to thank everybody for being involved. Ryan for being involved until his phone suddenly,
the aliens
capitulated. The aliens got it. Yeah, exactly. So I hope you're all right. But no, we just to wrap up, we've got Crystal Palace next. Everybody needs a good shake or a very good lie down or, a rollicking or an arm round the shoulder. Everybody needs all of those things or one of those things or none of those things to get them up for Crystal Palace. It's going to be tough. It's at Anfield, but it's going to be tough. Crystal Palace are a tough team. But basically, the team, if Thiago is out, obviously Alisson in goal.
He will be out.
Yeah, he'll be out. So Alisson in goal. The same back four, right? Trent, Virgil, Matip and Robbo. And then in midfield,
Naby comes in.
Naby comes in. He should be okay. So Henderson in the 6. Naby.
That's the three.
Oh, sorry. Fabinho in the 6. Hendo and Naby. See, I don't think
that'd be my midfield tree.
See, I would play Fabinho, Keita, and Elliott, and I would drop Hendo after that performance.
Maybe Elliott was brilliant when he came on, and definitely, obviously, Mo, Diaz, Nunes, I think has to be the three, doesn't it? I don't think you have any choice there.
Yes.
Look, a bit of pressure. Got to win that game. We really do. First home game, after dropping points in the first game, puts a little bit of pressure on. I would have liked it again quicker than to wait till next Monday. It's a bit of a wait for a game, isn't it?
It
I would
is.
have
It's
liked
going to
it
feel like a long time. We're going to be 5 points down on City,
Yeah.
aren't we?
I
By
think
the
it's
time it
important.
kicks off.
If we could have kicked off maybe before City, on Saturday or whatever, but it is what it is. The guys can maybe take a good look at themselves and maybe gives a few players that had a bit of a niggle to get back. Maybe the likes of Jones will come back in. Obviously, Naby will come back in, and players like that. So in a way, it's probably a good thing. They can look at themselves, maybe get to read the book Intensity and bring a bit of intensity. Gives them a week to read the book.
It does, and pull their proverbial fingers out of whatever holes they were stuck in the other day. Gary and Alan in the chat, they both agree with me that Naby, Fabi, and Elliot, as Gary Richards puts it, should start against Palace. But
There's a lot of chat about that Italian guy, Nico Barella, but
Barella,
I don't think
he won't
Liverpool
be
would
for
spend that type
sale.
of money. Do you?
I would love him. He would be perfect. He's
Is
that
he not
kind of
another
dynamic.
Aquilani? No.
No.
We don't have a good hit rate with Italians. We just don't.
Oh no, I don't like that though. That's what loads of people say. There have been a lot of Italians who have come to the Premier League and done very well, like Paolo Di Canio. Not for Liverpool, but that's just luck of the draw. We could, there's no like. I mean, had Liverpool signed Fabio Cannavaro, for example, he would have been a big hit in the Premier League. He just never played in the Premier League, So it's like, it's nothing. Italian players can play in the Premier League. Yes,
Yeah,
they'd have to
there's a
adapt.
premium
They'd need
though,
to
isn't
be
it? The premium.
physically robust. I mean, it's just the physical robustness. I mean, Dossena didn't have it. Who are the other Italians?
Aquilani certainly didn't have it.
Aquilani certainly didn't have it. Exactly. So you need physical robustness as well as technical brilliance, and I think Barella's got both of those. I think he'll be fine if we did, but they won't sell him. That's the problem.
No, they won't pay. I don't think Liverpool will pay that type of money anyway.
No, that's right. That's right. Well, maybe not. But Dave, tell us about your channel before we go, because it's all kicking off over at Dave's LFC Chats, isn't it? You're going stratospheric. Congratulations.
Intergalactic. Or Optimus Prime would say. Look, I'm just floating away. I'm less than 50 subs off 5k.
Wow.
Less than 50 off 5k.
Congratulations.
A lot of chats, a lot of fun, a lot of interviews, I'm going to do the odd watch along when I get a chance to. It's just time. It eats up the time. You know all about it. Going to be on a lot of podcasts. Just Dave's LFC Chats, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Join us on the journey. Get on the train. You never know where the train will stop next. The Anfield YouTube.
Absolutely. Yeah, if any listener has not subscribed to Dave's YouTube channel, then get on it right away. Let's get him up to 5k. And I'll choo on the train. And
Join us on the journey, the Anfield Express.
We're gonna. And I mean, it's been so nice talking to you, Dave, and it was so nice talking to Ryan earlier. You really helped ease my worried mind. I think we will learn from it. This team has shown over the years under Jurgen Klopp how good they are at learning from setbacks. And
we'll
that's
be okay.
the sign of
We'll learn from this. We'll be okay. In Klopp, we trust. We go again on Palace Monday.
We're gonna kick some ass on Monday. And in the meantime, it'll be funny watching United lose again, because they were. I mean, that is a nice thing. Everton as well.
It did ease the pain just slightly, actually.
It did. It does, though, doesn't it? It's like no matter what situation you're in,
it ain't that
United
bad.
fans have got it worse. Yeah, I mean, it's so. Yeah, thank you to everybody. All the best to you. May joyful goats dominate your dreams. Thank you very much, and we'll speak to you soon.